too embarrassed to tell my husband that I want to be read a bedtime story. I, 19F, am currently 6 months pregnant and trying to sleep has simply been hell. No matter what time I rest for bed, I always wake up before 2 a.m. From there, I am still sleepy, but no matter what I try, I can't fall asleep during the day. I get so exhausted that I don't even remember falling asleep. I usually sleep for about 4-5 hours. Not intentionally. I do try to fight it, but I usually just pass out. This has killed my productivity, motivation and energy. My husband, 19 meters, once read a bedtime story for me and I was able to fall asleep. I slept that entire night. He has such a loving, soft and calm voice. After the one night he said he didn't want to read me another bedtime story. I never asked for an explanation and didn't take it personal. At that time I didn't have issues sleeping and it was just a sweet little thing we had done for the night. I'm sure that it was nothing other than him not feeling up to it at the time. I think him reading me a bedtime story could help me sleep through the night, especially if I push myself to be so active that I have no time to sleep during the day. I'm too embarrassed to ask him because I'm a grown woman and should be able to rock myself to sleep. On top of that, want to be read a children's book. I feel like an adult's novel would get me to think more and distract me from ultimately sleeping. I really don't want him to mock me or call me childish. I don't think it's appropriate to try to shame me for being 19 and married because you couldn't do it at 35. You all don't know the people behind screen, which leads you to make the absolute worst and inaccurate assumptions. 2. There were some passive-aggressive comments that I made in retaliation to those being disrespectful towards me. Yes, I deleted them because that's not the type of person I am. Nor do I want to portray myself in such way. Tell him you want him to start reading bedtime stories to the baby in the womb so that baby learns his voice and starts to recognize the pattern of when you go to sleep. If there is ever a time to ask for weird stuff, it's during pregnancy. I once had to get those pine car fresheners things on a Sunday night because she got mad from practically an earworm but with smell. Could you try an audiobook? My husband tucks me in every night. I'm 32. Just ask and explain why. He loves you enough to marry you and have a child. He'll love you enough to read you a story. I hope you see this comment. When I was younger, my mom recorded an audio cassette. Old millennial hear of her reading my favorite book of fairy tales. I think it was Aesop's Fables, but that doesn't matter. Have your so do something similar for you maybe? Trust me, birth will give you much more to be embarrassed about than asking to be read a story. Lots of people read to their unborn babies, especially dads, since they have to make an extra effort for their voices to be heard. Your baby is starting to be able to hear outside voices around 6 months too. I'd try asking if he'd like to read a book to the baby. A husband and father should be willing to do anything for his wife and child, even if it's unborn. I pay yearly for the Calm app. They have sleep stories, music, everything calming. There are kids' sleep stories as well as adult stories, and it really does help you sleep at night. My kids listen to it to go to sleep, and so do I. Look into it, they probably have a free trial. How about instead of a bedtime story, you both pick a book to read out loud together that interests both of you? Y'all can swap every other night. Maybe reading out loud will help you sleep too. Stay away from your phone an hour before bed because the lights trick your brain. I read for my wife almost every night for her to sleep and never judged her once for wanting it. Personal opinion: you should never fear your husband's judgment. Hopefully you'll learn that soon. Blame the kid for kicking you to hard and breaking you concentration when you try to read yourself to sleep. You're pregnant with his kid. He should be able to do any and everything possible to help you deliver a healthy baby. Not sleeping has its consequences. My last girlfriend, now my wife, seemed a bit sheepish the first time she asked me to read her a story. Turned out she'd never had that as a kid and had only heard about other kids getting read to. We started with Winnie the Pooh by A. Milne. I really got into it. I did all the voices and everything. I was a bit disappointed when she fell asleep so quickly and I had to stop. We're still doing it 20-something years later. Just tell him he's your husband. Why is it a problem? Just ask him. My wife and I are in our 60s and I still read to her if she wants me to help to get her to sleep. I used to read stories to my wife all the time. She liked the parts one embellished on. I made up a lot of dirty parts that never were part of the Harry Potter books. The second edit is kind of cancelled out by that first edit. My girl is 31F and I have no problem reading her a bedtime story, so it is nothing to be embarrassed over. Buddy, I promise you it's more than worth asking. Maybe he just didn't want to do it again because he felt silly. But doing something simple and sweet for you to help you sleep is a no-brainer. I'd bet money that he wishes there was something he could do to help without knowing that the bedtime story did. I read my fiancé to sleep a lot and it's such a loving and intimate thing that we both love to share. Heart exclamation. Yeah, no, fuck you for shaming people who can't get pregnant at 35. You're 19. You probably don't even have a job. The bedtime story thing didn't make me think you're too young and immature to be having a child. But your edits sure do. You're shaming others and saying they're jealous because they were shaming you? Trust me, absolutely no one is jealous of a pregnant and married 19-year-old LMAO. And deleting comments just shows you also lack accountability for the crappy things you said. Those things don't represent you as a person. But the things other people said represent them? Tell your child husband to read your childish ass a story about getting off your high horse and growing TF up. 19, 6 months pregnant, and married. Yikes. What the fuck are you doing getting married and pregnant at 19? Nothing wrong with that. I used to read whole books to her over a period of nights. My wife went through this when she was pregnant too and also found that me reading to her helped her relax and sleep. But I had to read something she did not have think about. Something simple and positive that would make her happy. I won't say I always wanted to read to her at night, but I did cause it helped her. I understand being embarrassed about it. But it's probably more common than you think. You should talk to him and explain why you need this. Hopefully even if he does not understand, he'll still do it for you. That's not weird at all. It's a very sweet way to connect. You want a bedtime story because you're a child. 19? Zoinks. This won't seem like a big request when you have to ask him for a perineal massage. Ask him? Say your voice was so amazing I want to fall asleep to it. I would find that sweet. Maybe not every night but once a week. Audiobooks. I'm a wonderful story reader, but haven't had the chance since the kids started reading their own bedtime stories. My wife is an avid reader. Before bed every night I would be so flattered and overjoyed if she asked me to read to her. Pregnancy does strange things. No shame in requesting something legitimately helpful. Cooking shows on YouTube put me to sleep and rain noises. You could try all sorts of things if that doesn't work out. Hey op, you can check with your local library. A lot of them have digital library cards. There are apps like Libby and Hoopla you can sign up with through the library. And they have audiobooks. You can listen to someone read you whatever books you want. I do this to fall asleep. No shame, Purple Heart.